This is always my favorite part because sometimes I'm like, when we get super pro at this, we're just gonna like leave that in and be like, oh, are we
Oh,
recording?
we're recording. Okay, let's do this.
One,
Yeah.
one of those types of things. I always think it's hilarious because, and I know we're recording, but maybe we'll leave this part in. But some of the bigger podcasts, they have someone else hit the record button
And they don't know.
and they don't know it's recording. So there'll be like a group of dudes
Good.
sitting around having a conversation.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden one of them will look up and be like, oh, are we
Oh, here
recording?
we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey everybody, Brenden, Valks and Jeremy here with you. I'm here with my co-host, Jeremy Weins, and we are on episode number 4 already.
4 it is. Yeah.
I was thinking about this on the drive home today, actually. I'm super fired up. 4 episodes consistently. Number 3 is up. I put that up on Tuesday. We're going to put them out every 2 weeks. So y'all go check that out on YouTube, Spotify. I'm working on figuring out how to get it to the other platforms, like Apple and Google. But that's to be continued because I'm not 100% sure how we're going to do that. The Spotify thing is how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
They bought Anchor. Do you remember using Anchor? Did you use Anchor?
I did not. Nope.
So I used Anchor for my first podcast, which was short-lived, but because it's no fun doing it by yourself.
I agree.
And I stopped commuting, actually, is the big thing that killed it, is I stopped commuting, and then, because I always did it while I drove. But anyways, Spotify bought Anchor, and Anchor pushed it to all the other platforms automatically for you.
I remember you
And
telling me about
Spotify doesn't do it automatically. You have to go in and set it up, and I haven't taken the time to go figure out
that.
how
Okay.
to set that up. So, anyways, dude, how was your week?
Week was good. It was busy. Had a conference this week, so that was taken away, and then had possession day. Had just one thing after another. It was a very busy week.
Yep.
Crammed it all in, got it in. Just because I had a conference doesn't mean work slowed down, and you still
Yeah.
have to keep up with everything else. So, no, it was good. It was good. How
Well-
about your week?
We'll get there.
Okay.
I guess, first of all, you didn't buy a house. Possession date, you didn't buy a house.
Nope, sold house and clients
So-
took possession of it. So
For new listeners, because we're only on episode 4, you are a realtor. You don't just buy new houses all the time.
not yet. So no, no. It's I do real estate. So I was on both sides of this one, and so the possession day came,
Cool.
and so that was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
A little bit of hiccup. So I was supposed to leave for a conference that morning, but I had a feeling just to hold off. So I scheduled it for the afternoon. Best move because in the morning I could deal with all the mess of
minute.
that because it was a little bit of a mess. So we figured it out,
Mhm.
and not everything can be clean and simple. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the cool thing about hiring a realtor or a mortgage broker or whatever in that process. It's not that I couldn't figure it out on my own.
you
It's,
don't have to.
I don't have to. That's 100%. I don't have to.
Yeah.
Right? And then conference. I saw you were in Branden, I think, on Instagram.
You bet.
What were you doing?
So I'm also on town council. So on top
Right.
of being real estate agent, I'm in town council here in St. Anne, and the municipalities of Manitoba all get together for an annual conference, and it happened to be in Branden this year. So
Cool. So
yeah,
what is it? Like you meet other people, or what's the...
it's a great networking event. You meet a lot of other councillors and mayors and reeves and different people from all over Manitoba, and then they have different breakout sessions where they're specifically talking about different things.
Yeah.
And you get to just go sit in, learn, ask questions, and
Cool.
understand. Yeah, no, it's really good. It's really good.
What was one big takeaway?
One big takeaway is actually the use of AI and knowing that it's coming and some of the dangers and what we can do to kind of try to get ahead of it, to navigate it maybe.
Like from a community perspective?
Yeah, from a municipal level
Okay.
perspective, right? Because to see what we can do in that regard so that it doesn't
Yeah.
just go flying off the handle. Maybe there's some stuff we can do in that regard,
Yeah.
and how we can use it to better ourselves, to advance our community as well.
Very cool.
So it's not just a warning, but also here's the good side of it, right? So
Yeah. And you kind of like you really like stuff like that, so I'm sure that was
it-
double
it's-
interesting.
yeah, you know, it's something I never thought I'd really be into, as we were talking earlier. But yeah, it's something that's really grown on me. So
That's cool.
yeah.
That's awesome. That's a really cool event. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, so that happens actually twice a year. We have the spring and the fall one. So
Very cool.
yeah, so this was really good.
Yeah. I like conferences like that because you get to meet people
a
that
lot
you
of
wouldn't
people.
you wouldn't otherwise meet.
Yeah.
I know a friend of mine, he was just on a podcast. He's in the contracting space, and he was recently on a podcast, and the thing was is the organization he's a part of, like the coaching and such, they hold a conference every year similar to this. They actually do it twice a year.
Yeah.
This one was called Expo, and the company actually has a podcast, and so at Expo they get all these business owners, they pull them aside kind of thing and do a quick thing. So I think it's really cool because you get to meet people you don't really meet. You get to do things you don't normally do. Yeah, I love conferences for that.
Well, the nice thing is being in Brandon, it was 3 hours away. So
Mm-hmm.
driving there, I had a great conversation with somebody,
Yeah.
and it was awesome. The way back, everybody was asleep, so I got to drive by myself, and it was quiet in the car, and I just had time to think. And one of the best things about that is I kind of started thinking through, what do I want to start implementing in my business? What do I want to start implementing? How can I start making things easier for myself? Taking what I learned kind of from a conference about municipality, but
Yes.
how do I apply it to my business? How do I make my life easier in that, right?
Yeah.
So taking some strategic tips and go, oh, well, actually, what if I started doing this and what if I started doing that? And then I come home and it's like, okay, now I gotta find time to schedule
Yeah.
to
Hopefully you pulled out
implement
your
it.
notebook and,
Yeah,
and took some notes.
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah. Your week was way more interesting than mine.
yeah. So that's my week. What about yours? How was your week?
So this week I am knee deep in inventory.
Okay,
So I am, this year we have an amazing team. So where I work, we build trailers for the agriculture industry, and we do inventory twice a year, full counts twice a year of all of our stuff.
okay,
And year end for us fiscally is in November, and so this is our big one. You got to get it right. And so we have an amazing team this go around. So I didn't actually have to count a whole lot of things. I was just running it, and now I have the joy to do all the back end work of costing and things of that nature. And so that has been basically my entire week, on top of solving all the regular day to day stuff with the team. So
yeah.
that's, like I said, you had a more exciting week than mine.
Well, I sent you something to try to make yours more exciting.
That's right. That's right. So it's kind of interesting that we talked a little bit about business, because we're going to go into business health today a little bit.
Sounds
And our
good.
two topics are going to be on sales and investing in yourself. Now, don't worry, we're not going to try and sell you anything, number one. Number two, we're not going to try and teach sales, at least not on this episode. We'll try and stay away from some of the fluffy woo-woo nonsense that you typically hear on podcasts.
Yeah.
But before we do that, I'm gonna give a shameless little plug here. So this hat, mind my hair, but this hat, Taz Funk on Instagram, I'll link him in the show notes when we do the YouTube. He created this hat for me. He did the patch on it for Embrace the Storm, and I'm super pumped about it. I think it turned out really good, and he made a comment on my Instagram. Oh, the hat looks really good. Do you like it? And I said, yeah. Do you mind if I shut you out on the podcast sometime? He said, no, give her if you want to. So Taz, you did a great job, and yeah, I'll link his Instagram below. He does all things, not just hats. He does laser engraving and things like that. So, and he's local, which I love.
Perfect.
Yeah, I love that a lot. So anyways, let's start. Last week, the reason why I was thinking about investing in yourself actually spawned from the idea of, well, some of the mental junk I was talking about last week that I'm going through. I've been thinking a lot about the investing in yourself piece, but then also some of the stories that you told on last podcast, just about how you got to where you got to. I've been thinking a lot about this because it's my personal belief that if you don't invest in yourself, why should anyone else?
100% agree. Why was it? I forget where that came from. I know you've said it too, but if you're not going to invest in yourself, why would your boss or why would your employer?
So I first heard this term or this phrase from Grant Cardone.
Okay.
Grant Cardone was the first guy I ever paid to invest in myself. Random YouTube video I found of him, watched all the free YouTube videos, bought one of the courses he was doing, and that sort of helped launch me into building myself and not wishing that my employer would take notice that I'm cool or awesome or whatever.
Right.
But I had heard it from him, and I've heard it from him multiple times, and I probably heard it other places too. But that was the first place I heard it, and it was on a free YouTube video. And it just resonated with me so hard because I was sitting there working hard, and good at what I did, but I was still in that mindset of like, my employer owes it to me almost,
Right.
right? Now, granted, I was a young, dumb, something, whatever, 22-year-old or something like that. But so I didn't know any better. But when I heard that line, something kind of broke inside of me, in a good way, where it was like, oh, dang, I've never spent a dollar investing in myself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we talked last time a little bit about your story and how you got there. And obviously, you just said you believe in that as well. But I wanted to unpack that a little bit. Why do you think it's so important?
Well, I think if you can invest in yourself and you're showing yourself that you're actually worth something. That's when you actually have that belief that you are worth it.
Yeah.
That goes that step further, right? Versus if it's you're waiting for validation from others. Well, sometimes that just doesn't come as fast as we need it. Sometimes it doesn't come when we feel like we need it, right?
Yeah.
And so when you can validate yourself and say, you know what, this is what I've done, this is what I bring to the table, like that's a lot, right? And I can actually do that.
Yeah.
Um, and I can actually learn something with, and it doesn't matter what your skill set is,
Yeah.
whether it is in sales or whether it is in swinging a hammer or doing whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what the skill set is, but once you realize that you actually bring that to the table and you don't need the validation. Now it's always nice to hear from other people, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but when you don't live just for that validation from one to the next,
Yeah.
and you can carry yourself through it, and then you hear it and you're like, yeah, well, thanks for noticing, I appreciate that, right? And
I was talking to a good friend of mine about that recently, about the whole recognition thing. I'm the kind of guy, I don't need a pat on the head because I'm good at what I do and I know it, right? In
yeah,
a good way, right? But it's nice sometimes to get that pat on the head of like, hey, Jay, you did a great job, man.
yeah,
Like it goes a long way, especially when you've had a
100%.
long day, a long week, long month. Just to have someone come alongside and be like, dude, you're doing a great job.
Yeah, and I think as employers and such, and even leaders, mentors, I think that's something that often gets overlooked is that little aspect of, maybe those little words, they might not take much for you to
Yeah.
say because you recognize it, but you see it, but don't say it if you don't mean it, obviously. But like if you say it to whoever you're working with or whoever,
Yeah.
like that goes such a long way. And just sometimes it might just, oh, like thanks. And
I think that's a great point is you don't have to be the boss. You don't have to be the manager to do this. You
yeah,
can simply notice a coworker or a partner or whatever doing a great job at something and just be like, "Hey, you're doing a great job, man. You're hammering great, you're welding great, you're
yeah,
whatever, you're selling great, whatever it is.
right.
You're doing a good job." It makes someone's day sometimes. It's like, they talk about just smile at people, like on the street, whatever.
Mhm.
And I know it's a weird parallel, but sometimes you don't know what anybody's going through. And so those words of encouragement can go a long way. Something that you said kind of spawned a funny example in me, but the investing in yourself. So I wrote this and I was thinking about this in the context of career and business and moving your life forward kind of thing. But let's just take the example of knitting. I buy a knitting course, I buy knitting needles and I figure out how to knit, and then I buy more knitting courses, I figure out how to get better. On the surface, that doesn't translate very well to your job as an administrator or your job as a salesperson or whatever. But if you think about it, if you tell someone in a job interview, hey, I'm super passionate about knitting, I've spent thousands of dollars, I've gone to knitting conferences, I've taught myself to knit, I've even sold some of my knitting, like you're you're hearing as the interviewee or interviewer, as the interviewer, you're hearing attributes that you sure as heck want on your team.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes it's just hearing that or knowing that, you know what, when this person gets invested in something, they're going to go all in and they're going to be
Yeah.
somebody that, well, look, if they get that invested, maybe if they get invested in what we put in front of them, and they
Yeah.
start going to that, well, hey, you know what, that's something we want to hear, right? So that's something we want on our team and to
Yeah.
build our business and to build, or just in our lives. That's kind of people we want to surround ourselves with,
Yeah.
is those who want to take something as whatever as it is, as exciting or as mundane as it is, and just make it their own. It's huge.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is because you can teach skill, right?
Yeah,
But you can't teach passion. You can't teach them to invest their time, money, energy into something. That has to come from within, right? And so I think that that's a super cool thing that you brought up there. Just doesn't matter what it is. Are you investing in yourself? So I want to roll back kind of to last episode. You were talking about your journey from almost buying a construction company or whatever to getting into real estate. Obviously, you had to invest in yourself to get those real estate courses done.
Yeah.
Part of that, though, was, well, I have to get my real estate license if I want to sell real estate. So what kind of things have you done sort of post to continue to invest in yourself? Because you could have just stopped and been like, cool, I'm a real estate agent. I don't need to learn anymore.
Right. One of the biggest things, real estate, so you're in a car, you're driving lots, you don't always have time to read. So
Yeah.
I got Audible, downloaded it,
Yeah.
listened to books. And so as I'm going, I continue to learn, right? And I think in the last year and a half or so, I'm up to like 60 some books that I've just,
Really?
I
That's
keep
cool.
going and I listen to. And
Yeah.
some of them I'll listen to multiple times. And because I lose my attention pretty fast
Yeah.
when I'm listening, I usually double the speed because it just helps me. It's just like, oh, I got to pay attention, right? There's just something about it that triggers. And so I just, okay, I pay attention a little bit more. And if I need to, I'll listen to the book twice in the same amount of time it takes somebody to listen to it once. And I'll get stuff out of it, especially listening to it the second time, you'll always get more, right?
I think so. I mean, and maybe you can't relate to this, but this is my problem when I listen to audiobooks. So whether it doesn't matter what platform, right? But if you listen to an audiobook, we I guess for the audience, we listen to roughly the same stuff.
A lot of it.
Like how to improve yourself, business related books.
Yeah.
And so what happens to me is I'll be carrying on, listening to a book, super into it, and then I'll get a nugget. And then that nugget makes my brain go over here, and then before I know it, I've missed 5 minutes of the book because my brain is just like, oh, that was a good idea. What could I do with it? Like squirrel, right?
Right.
In a good way, but squirrel. I just, yeah. Do you suffer from that sometimes?
Absolutely, especially when driving, you can't always take notes, right? It makes it a little bit more difficult. So you kind
Have
of
you ever pulled over to write something down?
I
I have done.
I am not, but I mean, I've done it where as soon as I get to my destination,
You write something down?
I pull over and I like quickly wrote it
Can I
down.
tell you what I do?
Yeah.
So my phone is hooked up in the car because it hooks up to the radio, whatever. I have hit the button and been like, "Hey Google, take a note,"
Okay.
and then I'll make a note or actually not a note, sorry, a reminder. I'll be like, "Hey, remind me when I get home," and then whatever my thought was.
Right.
So when I get home, my phone dings like an alarm, and like I have something to do
Okay.
later. So I have done that, but I've never pulled over.
No.
I don't know. I find audiobooks, like I love audiobooks because I do a lot of driving too and I love them. But man, sometimes those rabbit holes in my brain wants to go down because they're good ideas.
Yeah. So and I also find there's a time to listen and learn, and there's a time I need to do something to distract myself, right? So
Yeah.
so whether it's listening to a podcast about something totally different, random
Yeah.
happenings in the world, whatever, so a comedian or something, just to take a little bit of a break.
You're a Swiftie, aren't you?
I am definitely not a Swiftie. My daughter sure is though. Oh, she loves that.
My 5-year-old is.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
5, eh? Oh, they start younger and younger. No, so I make sure to focus when I need to focus, but take that mental break if I'm driving, listening to a comedian or something, just to separate it. And it's funny, often when I'm going to an appointment,
Yeah.
I'm going to go see a house, I'll listen to a comedian.
Mm-hmm.
And most
It
people
puts you in a better mood.
puts me in a better mood.
Yeah.
And I get there and it's like, just as I'm pulling on the driveway or like a mile away or whatever, I'll often pause, quiet, and that'll be my like minute or two of just focus in. Now we're gonna
Getting your
focus
thoughts
in.
collected.
Okay,
Yeah.
then look at my papers or look at like I come prepared. So when I go to a place, I like to know what I'm getting into.
Yeah.
So be prepared and then I'll go into sales yet.
Yeah.
But then you go. Then when you're there, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
But I think prepared is a good word. That's kind of where my brain was going on the next thought is you need to be prepared for life, for business, for goals that you want to hit. Maybe
Yeah.
it's financial, maybe it's where you live, whatever. And I think that with the internet, with podcasts, YouTube, all these things, you can shortcut your learning so much. I mean, you put an audiobook in the car, you can bang out an audiobook in a day some days because the way you drive as a real estate agent. So you can shortcut how to build a career, shortcut how to save for a house, shortcut, how to write a book if that's what you're into. Whatever it is,
Right.
you can make these shortcuts. And I think that, what do you pay for Audible?
You know what? I don't even know. I just
Right?
I
But
think
let's
they had a
put
sale. I think I got like 12 for $80 or so. Like I just
right.
randomly,
So
but I
let's say
just
you
buy.
spend $100 a year,
Yeah.
$150 a year, whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
$150, and you're gonna get way more value than $150 out of that,
100%.
right? Or I spent $30 on an actual hardcover book. I'm gonna get more value than my $30, provided I pick the right book. And I guess back up. We're not advocating that you should only buy things that you learn. I have that sickness. That's what I have to do. But I understand it's a sickness. But I think being prepared. And so for me, like I continually, I'll buy a $50 webinar. I'll buy
Right.
the $100 a month subscription for a couple months to learn from some specific person on a specific topic, whether it's mindset, whether it's sales, whether it's like I've paid to learn about real estate, like investing. I've paid, like I continue to do these things sometimes just because I'm curious and interested in. Well, what better way than to just I'm going to pay my $50 and figure it out. Yeah, I'm going to figure it out, and sometimes that $50 is well spent because it's not for me. Sometimes that $50 is well spent because it is for me. But I pay to play. I pay to learn and I pay to figure things out. And I've spent thousands of dollars on conferences, digital conference mostly for me,
Right.
but digital conferences, courses, online seminars, all these things, because I want to get better.
Yeah. And like even going to that, I spent I don't know, it was like probably almost $1,000 on this course when I first started real estate, and they were going through this whole thing, all this stuff, and
Yeah,
I was like, man, this is a lot of information. It's just
drinking from a firehouse.
right, and yeah, and I did it, and I kept going, and I finally one day I was just like, and I followed all their steps, and it was to the T of like, these are your colors that you need to have for your calming effect. This is your
Yeah.
color. These are the shapes. These are the, and it was like all these things about designing a logo, right? And it was
Okay.
great, and like I'm sure it was useful,
Yeah,
but I spent all this time doing that, and I started thinking to myself, like, there's got to be something. This is crazy how much time I'm spending this and not be able to do my actual real estate, right? And so I ended up like talking to somebody, and they're like, "Oh, why don't you just put it on this website, and then you can just put it up there, and they'll design it for free." So I did, or design it for it, and you just say you give them $50 or $20.
yeah,
So I did it, and also I got back a better logo than I had already, and all this stuff, and I was like, "What am I spending all my time?" And you realize some of these courses, though, you got to be careful with is
yeah,
they could just be ultimately the whole point of that course is to get you to pay them to do it to save you time.
yeah. It's like a lead,
Oh,
a lead magnet that they're still making money on.
yeah. So
Yeah.
they're making money on me still,
Yeah,
but ultimately it's like, here, we're gonna overwhelm you with so much work
just do it for me.
that you'll say, just do it for me, and like, oh,
Yeah,
right.
let
So
us-
you got to be careful with those too, because my intention was to learn to grow, and well, I definitely learned something, right?
yeah.
And so from that course, it's like, okay, I'm not going to do that again. So be aware of those little things.
But I think
But
so. The two things there, I think number one are you still paid to learn.
absolutely,
It's simply not what you thought you were going to learn.
yeah,
And the other thing for me, and we talked about this on one of the other episodes we just did, but this idea that you shouldn't learn or take advice from anybody whose life you would not trade, right? And so that is recently, within the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, I would say that's the lens with which I look at some of these courses and course creators and
right,
conference leaders and things like that, is would I trade lives with them? And when I say trade lives with them, I'm not talking about the money or the Lambos or whatever planes, whatever they got going on.
right,
I look at it from more of a holistic approach. How are they with their wife? How are they with their sons, daughters? How are they with business partners, things like that,
Right.
right? How are they with their money? Not just do they have it. And so, yeah, so because of that, I'm not going to spend $1,000 on some logo course,
Right.
you know? And if I wanted to pay for a logo, I've kind of got my Rolodex
Right.
of
And it
people.
wasn't just a logo
No, no,
course,
no.
but like that
No,
was
but
this
that's
example, right? So
but I think that that's kind of the lens, right? Is who are these people? What have they actually done? Because recently I watched Ryan Stewman, the Hardcore Closer. He was talking about that. He's like, these fake gurus, they keep popping up because y'all keep paying them.
yeah.
And you get enamored, you get into the flashiness on Instagram. And so you're like, oh, teach me how to do that. But what you don't realize, because you don't look, is they actually haven't built anything. And so if you're gonna buy, and we're talking from a business lens today because we're talking investing in yourself,
Yeah.
and we're gonna talk sales here in a few minutes. But the idea, guys, is who's behind it, right? Like Grant Cardone, whether you like him or hate him, I personally don't care, but he's built companies. He's built a
Right.
real estate portfolio. He's done these things, right? Ryan Stewman would be another one. I know you aren't really familiar with him, but
Yeah.
he's built real companies. He's done real things.
Right.
He's not just some influencer on the internet, right?
Yeah.
And so just look at some of these guys and what they're doing, and are you willing to pay for it? And also, how long have you been following them? I think that's another thing because I'm talking specifically about online courses and things like that,
Right.
right? Have you been following them from the get-go and a long time? And so when they come out with something, you kind of know what they're about.
Yeah. Like Grant Cardone is one of those I jumped on to, and I mean I don't know how many of his books, like,
Yeah.
but like I've read them, or listened to them, and I've really got them. One of them is an amazing book that I listen to probably every 6 months or so. I love it because it's
It's 10x, isn't it?
it's Closer Survival Guide.
Oh, that's a good one.
Teaches you how to
That's a good
close,
one.
right? And
Yeah.
if you get those closes, and like some of them are extremely bold,
Yeah.
and yet there's times where I've used some
Yeah.
really out there ones, and there
So
you go.
let's transition. We'll go back and forth between these two topics, I think, because I think they go well together. But let's talk about Closer Survival Guide and sales.
Sure.
So we're going to talk about sales today because Jeremy and I have different sales approaches. We take a different approach to sales. We both have the same thought about sales, though. It's about helping the other person
Correct.
get what they want to get and genuinely want them to win, right?
Absolutely.
But Survival Guide, so I have that book as well. I enjoy it thoroughly. I've read it multiple times, listened to it as well. One of the things I love about it is not the closes in it, although some of them are very good and I've used them in one. What it makes me think about is the ballsy approach that they've got to some of those closes, that Grant has to some of the closes. What it's done for me is it's made me think, am I confident in myself? Like it's had me heart check, right? Like, would I ever say that? Could I ever say it? Who I am, I'm probably not saying it from a character perspective,
Right.
not from a confidence perspective. But when I started reading that book, I promise it was from a confidence perspective. I would never say that to someone out of lack of confidence, right? Now, sometimes in sales, it's not lack of confidence in you, Jay. It's lack of confidence in what you're selling. Do you believe in what you're selling?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely you come to a transition point in whether it's your confidence or whether it's confidence in what you're doing,
Yeah.
or like different things, right? So I found that, like, especially at the beginning, like some of those things I was like, oh, I can't believe somebody would ever say something like that, right? Like I'd be so offended, so bothered. And then you start realizing the further you get into sales is people generally, if you start really understanding the needs of the people,
Yeah.
and you get to the genuine heart of what their actual,
Yeah.
like, if this is the right product for them or right
Yeah.
thing for them, why on earth would you not do everything you can to make sure that they got something? If
Yeah.
you truly believe it, like,
Yeah.
that's the right thing for them. Like, I've had different times where, like, we got to write this offer on this one,
Yeah.
and this is the price we have to write, and they're like, well, I don't know, like, if we don't do it today, like, we're done. Like, I just
Yeah.
right, and I really pushed one, right? And
Being bold on
being very,
yeah.
it wasn't that I was cocky. It was like, guys, we've looked for a year now.
Yeah.
This is the one. This has everything you've asked for. You're gonna hesitate. We're gonna lose, guaranteed, right? And so when we did that afterwards, like they were like, thanks for getting us off the fence. Like we just,
Yeah.
right? They were so grateful for it. It turned out to be one of the best moves of their life, and that was something exciting for them, right?
Yeah.
But having that confidence, it comes down to believing in yourself and knowing.
I think too, it's sort of the idea, of the evangelist. It's if you believe that you have the antidote, if we're going to use that analogy, the antidote to save them from hell, or save them from making a bad
Right.
financial decision on a house, or getting them in the wrong vehicle, or whatever it is. If you truly believe that you have the solution to their problem, why are you not doing everything in your power to
Yeah.
make sure that they get what they need? Now, sometimes that means telling them, "Hey, we're not a good fit," right? And
Yeah.
that's a confidence move. That's a ballsy move in and of itself to know, hey, we're probably not going to be a good fit,
Yeah.
right? And so I think it's just a very interesting thing. Real quick on confidence, though, I think the interesting thing is, and we touched on this when we did my why exercise, but sometimes you have to uh, borrow someone else's belief in you
Right.
until you believe in you, right? And that kind of sounds dumb, I know, but sometimes people see things in you that you don't see in yourself. And if you'll just borrow their belief for a little bit while you build up your own, that can go a long way. And that's where it comes back to investing in yourself. You're talking about, survival guide. Help me out here. Closer Survival
Yeah.
Guide by Grant Cardone. If you didn't read that book and pick up some of those nuggets, you wouldn't have been able to have that confident conversation with some of your buyers or some of your sellers, right?
Right.
I know for a fact because of that book, I wouldn't have been ballsy enough to close some of the deals I've closed, or even some of the ones I haven't closed, but was willing to ask those hard questions. And I think that that's something in sales that we can both agree on is sometimes you got to ask the hard questions.
Absolutely. But I think as you were saying, we have different approaches to sales. Like
Yeah.
now there's things that I think that I really admire about what you do that I really need to implement more, and I'm trying to,
Okay.
and learn about and systems and how to do that properly. So I'll let you dive into that a little bit. But the
Yes.
systems aspect of it, that's probably
So I actually was having coffee with a different friend of mine, and we were talking about that and how much I love systems and how much they really just get me going. Like whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's operations, like systems, both people systems and standard operating procedures and things like that, or even tech to help you.
right.
My whole job is to help people not lose things, not have them fall through the cracks. And so, yeah, one of the reasons we wanted to talk about sales today, or I wanted to talk about it, is because of our different approaches. So I'll talk about my approach, and then, you can talk about your approach, and maybe we can fight about whose is better. But my approach is systematic. So the very first course that I ever invested in with Grant Cardone, it was a webinar that he was doing called, I don't even remember what it was called, but it was on cold call. It was, Millions on the Phone. It was called Millions on the Phone. And I think now he uses it as like a free product. But then it was $150, couldn't afford it. So I split it with a friend of mine and we watched it together. Grant, if you ever listen to this, no, we didn't do that. But we split it, and what they took you through was a systematic approach to making a cold call. Now, I say the word cold call, and we just lost, the one viewer we actually had on this thing. Nobody likes cold calling,
Right.
but funny enough, I enjoy it. I don't do it anymore, but a lot of my career was built on cold calling, and I love it. And what I recognized early on is, or I guess I've recognized in hindsight, cold calling is a system.
Absolutely.
You come up with the right script for the right product, for the right people. You got to get your audience dialed in, you got to get your product dialed in, of course, but then it can be systematized into what to say and when to say it. Now, scripting doesn't mean sounding robotic. It
Yeah.
simply means that you know where you're going, regardless of what the person on the other end of the phone says. And it's not pushy, it's not gross, it's not robotic. It's still conversational, relational. It's a system. And so I can make, again, I don't do this anymore, and I don't honestly want to, but I can make 60 to 80 cold calls in a day with the right software, probably more. That's a different conversation we should have on this podcast, is software to help you automate and speed up tasks.
Okay.
But
I'll learn from that one.
yeah, but not just for cold calling, but with a lot of things. I mean,
Absolutely.
right? But we can build a script in 5 minutes if you know the system that gets people interested. And I've simply been able to do that. You know, when I had my own business, I was able to do that time and time again to help people get re-engaged.
Right.
And that's kind of my secret sauce. Is I've never been top salesperson. I've never claimed to be. But man, do I know how to get old leads re-engaged, how to get orphans re-engaged. And there's systems around it. And that is my approach to sales, is all systems to make sure nobody gets left behind. Now you, on the other hand, you are the friendliest salesperson I've ever met. And so tell the audience a little bit about your approach to sales and why we say we're so drastically different, even though we have the same goal.
Well, first, I'm going to probably get you to help me with some system stuff yet. So
Good.
we'll get on that. But my approach right off the bat, early on, is, well, everybody else has clients. I make friends, right? And I try to.
Can we pause there for a second?
Sure.
I'm sorry. I love this. And this is something that I loved about you before we were even friends. Because you made a post or you made a video or made a comment. Maybe it was in that group we were a part of early on. But you made this comment about how everybody else has clients and you have friends. And I thought, from someone that loves marketing and branding, I was like, what a great way to differentiate yourself from everybody else. And we live in an area, there's hundreds of realtors, you know. I always joke there's more real estate agents than Starbucks, but
Yeah, you know, 100%. And that was something I really wanted to focus on. I didn't want to just react and just be a quick hammer it out sales guy,
Yeah.
right? My approach is, I want to get to know who you are, what you're looking for, and what your goals are, right? If maybe I can help you in adjusting your goals, or maybe I can help you in achieving your goals, right? Like if you're looking for this house, but maybe this is a better one for you because this
Yeah.
could actually make it a little quicker to get you to your goal, but it's going to take a little bit of different approach, right? And so understanding who the people are, like I get to know who I'm working with, right? That way I
Yes.
know what it is they're looking for, right? And so I'm and this is to my detriment, I think. Without the systems, I sometimes lose people because I focus a little bit too much on some of
The relational
people that
side.
I have, and then also if I don't have certain things in place, like if I don't put the name, or like I'll put the name in, if I don't, but I don't put something to market, might forget. Oh, okay, that name is familiar. Who is this from?
Why is it familiar?
Yeah, why is it familiar, right? And I'll lose something like that, and that's
Yeah.
unfortunately one of my downfalls, right? And then
Yeah.
I recognize that. But when I'm with somebody and we're actively searching for a house, I'm with them. I know them. And when we buy something, often, like I was talking to somebody yesterday, they bought a house 2.5 years ago, and I remember I could tell you everything about that house. I could tell them when
Yeah.
we first walked in there what it was like, and then they showed me the renovations, and I could talk about that because I was so invested into what they had and what they were doing,
Yeah.
and I actually genuinely care about that, right? It's not just
Yeah.
that I'm like, oh, good, I made a sale, okay, I'm gone, right? It's
Yes.
like, okay,
It's
we
not
made the sale.
transactional for you.
Right, it's relational, and
Yeah.
if I can effectively reach somebody, that means more to me, like,
Yeah.
than just hammering out sale, 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 sale. It's relationship.
And I think that there's a balance between the two.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to come on today and talk a little bit about our approaches to sales, because we both love sales and we both
Yeah.
love helping people. And so I think that there's no one answer. There's no one size fits all approach to sales, although some of the people on the internet would disagree. But I think the amazing thing with your approach is, with a couple of operational tweaks, nothing falls through the cracks.
Yeah.
Now, not only are you increasing your sales 10, 12, 15%, but you're still able to do what Jared does best, and that's make friends, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that your whole, I don't have clients, I have friends, just being out there with that alone sets you apart from the pack, from the relational versus transactional. Because if you're a client, it sounds transactional.
Yeah.
But if we're friends, oh, we can talk more than one time.
Yeah, you always want what's best for your friends. You want your friends to succeed. You want them. If you're
Yeah.
a client, you're just a number, right? Like, and don't get me wrong. I know agents. I'm not trying to say all real estate agents are
No,
like that.
no.
That's not what I'm saying.
No.
I just, for me, I take it to a personal level. Like, I'm trying to get to know, right? That relational aspect.
And I think that excuse me, I'm really into what we're talking about. I'm not actually that tired. But I think, though, that that's super important, because there are some great agents out there.
Absolutely.
Let's be clear. But one of the things you do phenomenally is you do play coach a little bit. You do, like, you've told me stories where, hey, you're not buying this house now, but here's the 3, 4, 5, 6 things you need to do to be able to buy the house. And you have that one tremendous story. We don't need to go into it here, but you have that one tremendous story where you did that, and they were able to buy a house, and they ended up buying a house with you. And it was probably in large part because you helped them figure out how to get financially right to buy that house.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to your relational sales all day long. And that, to me, whether you're a systems guy on the phone sales like I am, or you're making friends like you do in sales, I think the number one thing is to realize, guys, we should play the long game.
Yeah, and I think that's where systems comes in, is because, like I said before, sometimes I'll lose people when I don't mean to and I don't intend to, but it's like, oh man, and also it's been like between real estate and town council and life, busy, right? So so when you miss out on some of those things, it's like, oh, and you realize it a little bit too late, and you're like, okay,
Yeah, and it gets kind of like that awkward friend situation, right? Where it's like, I'm not gonna call them because it's been too long, and then you're really not gonna call them because it's been even longer, and it just drags out, and eventually you're like, we'll get to them later, right?
Yeah, and that's where systems come in play. And so I think you're right. They, like, systems and relation, they have to join together to be effective. But I mean, how that looks different for everybody.
But I think the big thing is, let's not be transactional.
Right.
Meaning, I'm just here for the dollar.
Right.
Right. And it doesn't matter what you guys sell, whether it's services, trailers, real estate. Like, playing that transactional game of, I'm just in it for what's in it for me, right? I'm just in it for the commission.
So short-sighted.
Right. So short-sighted. Right. And let's be real. People smell that on you when you're just in it for $1. And I know when you're just starting out and you're broke, like, it's really hard to overcome that.
Yeah.
But playing that long game of what's best for the customer is super important. And I've actually left a sales job, because they were trying to be too transactional. They were trying to just, hey, how much money can we get, and move on.
Yeah.
And that's not the way I am, because I truly want to help people. And
Yeah.
sometimes that means staying where they are, at least for now.
Yeah.
Right? Again, whether it's a house, whether it's a service, a car, whatever. Like car sales guys. Sometimes people need to drive that 1996 Honda Civic for a little while longer till they get their financial situation straight.
Yeah.
Then they can get the newer one. Right? And are you willing to follow up with them for the next 2 years because you care, not because you want the commission, because you care? And then 2 years later, when they're ready, they're going to come back to you because you cared.
Yeah. Well, and even to the next level of that, I'm in the middle of building a team around, like a mortgage broker, a lawyer, who are kind of have the same mindset, right? And that's something I've really been working on, is because I could do that all I want by myself, but I want somebody, like, look, this guy's going to be in it with you for the long haul to help you get your finances right. This guy's going to help you from the legal standpoint, and he's going to help you walk through what's required of you, right? And building that kind of team together. And I'm still looking for insurance. Like I still have missing pieces, but I'm trying to build that team where I like
Yeah,
networking.
you go to people.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
people that actually are genuinely care about that. And so I have a few people in place already that I've been working with.
Yeah.
And so that's huge to me because
And are you doing it, and you don't have to say if you don't want to, but are you doing it so that you get referral fees, or are you simply doing it out of love
I,
because it's going to be what's best for your business and your clients?
I don't get referral fees from them. I don't. This is actually genuinely because, like, look, you
Yeah.
take care of my clients. That's all I'm going to ask for you to do. Like, and once again, these are people I'm building genuine friendships with.
Like the service provider.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like the mortgage broker I work with, Keith. He's an amazing guy, and we become really
Is that
good friends.
Wallbum?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we become really good friends through this, right?
Okay.
And now, even just today, I went out for lunch with a lawyer who I've been talking with over the last little while. Finally met him in person today. We went out for lunch, just had a conversation. He's a younger guy starting up, building up.
Well, that's
And
cool.
so I'm like, okay, good. I'm looking for somebody who we can work together with, right? And kind of grow and expand our business, expand,
Yeah.
going to the next level of career with, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
so that's kind of the systems I'm
cool.
trying to really develop is like not the I don't necessarily
But
if
it
they're
speaks
established or whatever, it doesn't matter. I want somebody who's genuine, right? So
but it speaks to who you are making friends. It speaks to the old school salesman as well, because the history of the salesperson, it used to be that you would go to your guy,
right,
whether it was your insurance man or your real estate agent or whatever. But lots of people back in the day, they had a salesperson in their life, and that was who they went to for a doctor referral,
right,
for a lawyer referral, for an insurance whatever. They had that one sales guy.
right,
It was typically a sales guy that they would go to, and that one guy, he was the guy that
right.
knew all the people. Like he had the hookups,
Yeah,
And I think that speaks volumes to who you are as a human. Of you genuinely want to help people, and when you help people get what they want, you inevitably get what you want
yeah. Like I don't always worry
to your detriment.
to yeah, like about am I gonna get paid top dollar for
Yeah.
this, right? I believe if I'm genuine, if I work hard, if I involve the right people, I will get taken care of already. Now, that doesn't mean I'm foolish and I'll just go after anything and just foolhardily
Yes.
give away anything, right? It's strategic still,
Yeah.
but I'm always not always just after that catching
Quick dollar.
quick dollar, right? But once again, having those systems in place of keeping track of all these things and putting it in place is like
Yeah.
once this happens, what's the next step? Okay, well, automatically take it from here, we move to the next step, and we move into the next
Oh.
step, and then you move people along.
You're turning
Yeah.
me on a little bit.
Right.
I'm getting a little turned on.
Yeah.
Like this is what I live for over here.
Well, and that's just it, right? That's the next step, right? That's how we go, right? And that's how and I think that's how we're going to elevate, right? Is
100%. And I think the other thing too in those operational systems is how many people have you referred to your mortgage broker? How many people has your mortgage broker referred to you? Not because you want anything in return, but because maybe you need to reevaluate that professional relationship at some point. I'm just picking on Walbum because, Instagramly, I kind of know who he is.
Yeah.
So I know he's not going to take too much offense if we're talking about it. But yeah, maybe you need to reevaluate that relationship
Yeah.
because you're doing all the giving
Right,
and there's no reciprocation there
right, right.
of that love. So you still need operationally you still need to keep track of
Correct.
that circle, right?
Right.
And I think that is something I've always struggled with too. Is I've thought about building those circles or those Rolodexes of professionals,
Yeah.
but I've struggled with the conversation mentally of, do I ask for $100 referral fee? Do I just do it out of the goodness of my heart because it's what's best for my clients, etc.
Right.
Right? And going back to your other point is not being foolish. Let's not work for free.
Right. And so I think to start, you keep it, not that you're testing or whatever, but you give those referrals and you give that, and you see what they're going to do with it, right?
Yeah.
And if they're going to take care of it, they're going to go to the next step, and they're going to do everything they can for it,
Yeah.
and they're going to prove themselves. Okay, that's good. That's awesome, right? And then once
You
again,
need to have
is it being reciprocated back, right?
Yeah.
And so you definitely keep you aware, be aware of that, but like you kind of give and see what happens, right? That's where the not being foolish but being strategic, right? Is here, I'll give you an opportunity. I'll give you a chance. I'm going to prove myself. Like if you give me the chance, I'll do everything
Yeah.
I can to prove myself. But I'm going to give you the chance to do the same, right?
I think in that regard, like what you're talking about, you have to view it as a sales sort of relationship.
Yeah.
In that there needs to be follow up, and so I learned this from a gentleman named Donnie Boyven. He owns Success Champions. It's a networking organization, but what he teaches, he's a really good dude, by the way, if you want to look him up. But he teaches when you do something like that, when you give a referral, it's in your best interest to follow up
Right.
and see how it went.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you send something to your mortgage broker, oh hey Keith, how'd it go? How is Brenden?
Yeah.
Oh, I just haven't gotten to it yet. Well, what the heck, man?
Yeah. See you.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I'm sending you business. What's going on?
Yeah.
Or Keith gets back to you and goes, dude, met with Brenden. We have something on the calendar for next week. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Right? But how do you know if you don't follow up?
And 100%. And that's something. That's one of those things where if I'm doing a referral, I'll always follow up to make sure that it's being taken care of.
Well, because it reflects poorly on you. Because if you
Right.
refer me to Keith, right, your mortgage broker,
Yep.
and Keith doesn't follow up with me, and you're the one that told me, hey, go talk to my guy, now that reflects poorly on you.
And that's happened to me where I've lost a client because I referred them to somebody and that other person just like
Didn't take care of them.
didn't take care of them. It's happened to me a few times, and I or especially early on, I was a little more naive. I was a little more trusting. Like, okay, that happens.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that happens. And then also catch a system, and it's like wait, or catch it keeps happening, and you're like, okay, wait a second, this is garbage. We're not doing that anymore. I'm
Yeah.
done. Cut off. Go to the next, right? But being aware of when that cycle is going and when you need to cut it off, or when it's going good and you can't, well, you're taking care of a little, I'll give you a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
And take care of my clients, take care of my people, and you'll take care of me as well. So because they're the ones who are taking care of me, they're the ones who are going to be
100%.
I'm going to make my paycheck from taking care of somebody. So
Yeah. And I think, guys, at the end of the day, whether you're working for yourself, working for somebody else, in sales, in operations, doesn't matter.
right.
I think that we all should look at it that way, is taking care of people is what pays the bills.
Absolutely.
Because it all trickles down.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have, I know you do a lot of your own stuff, but you have administrators in the office.
Yeah.
Like behind your real estate organization, there are ops people, there are administrators, things like that if they didn't do their job, you couldn't probably do yours.
Absolutely.
Right? And so it's the same thing if you're working a blue collar job and you're one of the guys on the tools, right? Guess what? And you work this life. But if you didn't go out there and give it your all and do your job properly, that meant that someone else wasn't being taken care of.
Yep.
And so you got to take care of people. And by taking care of people, you're going to get taken care of.
Absolutely.
And that's a paraphrase from Brian Tracy. But
Yes.
Brian Tracy? Zig Ziglar, I think.
Okay.
If you give, maybe, I don't know, Zig Ziglar or Brian Tracy, maybe if someone listens to this, they can drop a comment to us.
Yeah.
But one of them said, the famous quote, oh, guys, now it might have been Jim Rohn. I'm just throwing names out there. But
Just
this
name drop it first.
Yeah. Yes, I know Jim Rohn personally.
Yeah.
Even though I think he was very, very old by the time I was born. But this idea that if you help others get what they want, you'll inevitably get what you want.
I believe that. Yeah.
I believe that so much. I wanted to ask you, because I can't see the clock, how long have we been going?
55. Yeah.
Okay, we better wrap it up here.
You bet.
In my head, I was taking notes because in my head I was like, man, we got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So here's what I want to say, guys, as we wrap this up, and then I'll let you have the last word. Take us out. But what I want to say is, with sales, play the long game, make friends, but balance with systems so that nobody drops through the cracks.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have your systems tight, figure that out. If you've always been transactional because you want to make those dollars, try being friends. If you're trying too hard to be friends, maybe work on transactional a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you got to work on your weak areas, right? And then at the end of the day, this is my challenge to you. Invest in yourself. Spend some money.
Yeah.
spend some money, because when you spend money, you care.
Yeah.
When I have a free class, go to a free class, free training, I don't care as much as when I pay $50, $100, $30 for a book.
Yeah.
Like, you pay, a couple $100 a year for Audible. Like, you use that subscription because you pay for it.
Absolutely.
Now, do we all have that one subscription we probably should cancel that we pay for?
Absolutely.
100%. However, you're more likely to do the thing when you pay for it. So go out there, invest in yourself, learn a new skill, even if it's knitting. Fire up an old skill, whatever that happens to be. Jay, take us out. What do you got?
Well, I think, like you said, you know what? Going out, invest in yourself is going to be the best investment you could do, possibly. It's just going to make your life better. It's going to make those around you better. It's going to make your community better. It's going to make just everything better. So,
Yep.
100% invest in yourself. Never regret it.
100%.